All right, it's 7 o'clock, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for everyone coming out to Video Game Makers Unite. We have our speakers tonight, and hopefully there's going to be some weird growing pains with this because it's been 6 months since we've done this show at all, and we've never done it virtually over Zoom. We do have a chat channel. If you haven't found it yet, we're probably going to be using that for a number of different functions, including Q&A, but just to break down how this is going to work. I have a number of announcements that I wanted to make early on. Also, if everyone who wants to announce themselves either looking for work or looking to hire someone, again, please use the chat channel and take the time while I'm yammering to find how to use that. I will call people out for that. Actually, now that we've figured out how to do it, why don't we go ahead and use the raise hand functions under participants. And at the point when we start talking about job haves and job have-nots, I will call on you individually and you can announce yourself and hopefully present yourself well. But after that, we have our two speakers from Electric Cat Games, Richard and Daniel. And afterwards, we'll probably take a bathroom break because everyone's at home or in their office right now with varying access to food and drink. So we'll probably need a break in the middle of that. And then we'll come back with Q&A. And hopefully there won't be too many people that I can't dispatch at all. But we seem to be in good spirits. And again, thank you very much for spending your evening with us. There are a number of different ways you could be choosing to spend a Thursday night, including at least one other virtual meeting. The Austin Entertainment Business Group is having a meeting, and they announced it a week ago. Well, we've been planning on this for months. So there. But,
there.
I suppose I should point out how I debated with myself about exactly how to announce this, and I've peeked at our speakers' slides, so I know that they're going to be announcing a lot of it better than I could, plus with visual aids. But we live in absolutely historic times right now. A lot of things have been happening at once. A lot of them have been in our history, but very rarely do we get disease, economic upheaval, and social unrest, totally justified social unrest, all at the same time. The reason I bring that up is to reiterate how, if anyone who's gone to this show before, I'm often saying the same phrase about keeping in touch and how important that is. It really is that much more important now, especially since it's that much harder because we're not even seeing each other in person. And this is going to be impersonal no matter what. When we do it over the internet, yeah, we're kind of looking each other in the eye, but kind of not. We're trying to be nonverbal and act like human beings as we normally do in person, but it's not the same thing. But think about all the people that you are close to, that you respect and work with, or just enjoyed hanging out when you could do that. There's probably a lot of them that they always seem like they're on edge, or that they're at their limit of emotional tolerance for everything that they're having to bear. And without being in judgment of how they bear it, but wanting to help them, the best thing you can do is keep in touch with them. And even if it seems impersonal, to try and just reach out and say, hey, how are you doing? And tell me something about what's going on. That can be so crucial to some people and just getting through the day, to be reminded that they are in fact a human being and that there are other human beings in their lives that care about them. So I'd encourage people to do that as much as possible. And I mean, one of the core tenets of this show, stated or otherwise, is that all the people that care about video games and video game development and the people that are doing it, they're humans. They're weird humans. They're unique humans. They're not typical in many different ways, but their humanity is inherent. sometimes it can be said that they're disincentivized from acknowledging themselves as human or each other as human, or that they're not just cogs in a impermeable machine that poops out amusement products. There's humanity in everything that's being done, and I argue that the more humanity is understood and enshrined, the better off we're all going to be, just not just in understanding about the things we care about, but the products themselves. So like I said, before you came in, I was going to make a big speech to make myself sound smart, but I did want to say that just for the sake of, not bringing it up. Otherwise, there's been a number of names that you probably ought to pay attention to in the news lately. Uh, uh, just the other day, the two ways that you could watch ride-alongs on cable news, Live PD and Cops, are now canceled. They're not coming back. But a guy here in Austin a year ago was apparently being filmed by a ride-along crew from Live PD, and they say they lost the footage, so we won't get to see how to do that. That's not the tragedy. The tragedy is human lives are being lost unnecessarily, and oftentimes without a lot of consideration to why. We need to be concerned about this, and I encourage everyone to spend time, if it's not clear to you why this matters to anyone, educate yourselves. It's the best thing that anyone can do, and not to get too sentimental about it, but we have the internet. Don't just assume that if it's not touching you right now, that it's not touching someone else in a very important way. Justin Howell is a name that people ought to know. He's alive, but he's still in critical condition after being hit in the face with a less than lethal round by Austin PD. Brad Levi Ayala, only 16 years old, cut in the head by these rounds. This is not necessary. And whatever comes of this, and whatever comes of the protests that are going on, pay attention to this, and pay attention to the people that are taking part in it. And by the way, COVID-19 is still a very real thing. When you're going out in public, keep your distances, wear your mask as much as possible, and get tested, because that's available now. Mayor Steve Adler videotaped himself getting that thing stuck all the way up his nose and rotated 3 times. Not pleasant, but available. That was something that should have been available very early, that wasn't. But if you're going to be out and about, you owe it to yourself and the people around you to find out. And here's something that happens every time this year in Texas. It's summer. It's hot out. If you're going to spend any time outside, wear sunblock, carry water or other ways to hydrate yourself. Don't let yourself get heat stroke or dehydration. It can kill you just as much as anything else we're talking about here, or make your life that much harder to live, healthy and happy. But again, keep in touch with each other and pay attention to what's going on, and give each other advice when you think you need it, and even if you don't think you need it. But I do wanted to say that, while I also wanted to point out a couple names that came up in the news today. Sony did their big reveal about the PS5 and games that are in development, and one's right here in Austin. Blue Point announced their next remake of Demon's Souls, following on the success they had with the remake of Shadow of the Colossus. They're doing this one with Sony and From Software for the PS5. And our friend Evan Narcisse, who's based here in Austin now, writer, used to work for Kotaku and is now branching out into comic books and all other sorts of entertainment media, announced that he's announced from his sick bed, because he took a nasty fall off his bike and broke his pelvis. He's recuperating. He's fine now, but he is working with Insomniac Games on their upcoming release, Spider-Man Miles Morales. So that's got a connection to Austin as well. And if anyone hears about games that are being made in Austin, you've heard me say it before. Our speakers heard it before we started up. This place matters, and the fact that you're here in Austin making games ought to matter to you. And if it doesn't, then the people around you need to do a better job of emphasizing why these things matter. So not to say that we all just share in the collective work. No, they're individual people who are doing this work, but we can celebrate it and recognize the parts of Austin that made their creation work. So please share the information, use chat to do that. If you know of any other games that are being made in Austin that are coming out or just recently came out, I'm not aware of a lot that have come out in the past month, but there may be some. But like I said, we're going to be kicking it over to Daniel and Richard in a bit. But one thing that we do all the time and at this show and usually in front of other people, I'm not even getting your reactions. I can't see all your faces. Some of you have your video active. Most of you don't. But what we like to do is for people that are looking for work, and those are the job have-nots, and the people who are looking to hire other people, the job haves, please identify yourself if you want to with your name and what your basic information is, and I will turn on your audio to do that. I think someone just put their hand up and put it back down again, but we'll start with the have-nots. If you're looking for work, please use the hand gesture. If you don't want to use audio, you can use on chat, but I will do the first one. William.
Hi there. So my name is William Mearns. I am a developer turned project manager. So I've been in business enterprise for about 5 to 10 years now, doing development and then project management for about 4, and been doing indie development on Unity and C# the past 4 years. So I ended a contract at the beginning of the year and I've been searching ever since just because of this COVID craziness.
Why don't you put your website information in chat so we have it. Thank you, William.
Yep.
All right. Aaron. Aaron Taylor. Talon. All right. How about Justin? We'll come back to you, Aaron. Justin.
Oh, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, how's it going, y'all? My name is Justin. I'm currently a software developer at the University of Texas at Austin. I'm working on the ServiceNow platform on the ServiceNow team. And I actually met Gordon at the UT Game Career Fair back in February before this COVID stuff happened. And so I recognized him. I saw him like, oh yeah, I met him at that career fair. And right now I'm looking to get into the games industry. Been self-teaching myself how to develop games in Unity. I've developed 1 game and I'm working on my 2nd one right now. And yeah, and this is my first time going to this event with this group, and I'm just excited to be here and just looking to get into the industry.
All right. What kind of job are you looking for?
Like a gameplay programmer.
Okay. Thank you. Put all your information in chat so we have it. Thank you, Justin. All right. We got a graduate of the Hopf Institute, Garrett Hale.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
All right. Hey, I'm Garrett Hale. I'm a C++ developer. I have done projects in Unity and Unreal. I like to have a to-the-metal sort of philosophy of programming that extends past game design. Hit me up if you need some programming, I guess.
All right. And when's Vessels coming out?
Oh, it's been delayed. But yeah, we're working on a Unreal Engine 4 game called Vessels. We're in the last home stretch here, so
Very good.
that'll be good. Coming out at some point. Nothing publicly available though.
Yeah, well, you're getting used to coming together at the Hopf offices, but then no one can do that and they closed up. So.
Yep. Yeah.
Right. Stay in touch.
It's been tough.
Put your deets in chat. Thank you, Garrett. Anyone else? And some people just came in. Please raise your hand if you want to. Sorry, Aaron. I saw you earlier. Let's see if it works this time. Aaron Talon. Not hearing you, Aaron. Is your microphone on? All right, anyone else that wants to announce themselves as looking for work? Aaron, I apologize that I cannot hear you. I'm going to put you on mute again. No one else wanting to announce themselves as looking for work? Okay, how about the job haves? Who is looking to hire people? Please raise your hand. Scott Porter.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for having me, John. Gordon, good to see you again. Yeah, my name's Scott Porter, and we're putting together a game, and I have 22 weeks to finish it out, and I'm a little behind schedule. I have a well-scoped project that I'm hiring for right now. We're looking for a Unity programmer. I can drop the job listing for that. But I also have budget for a 2D artist, which I don't have a scope project for it yet, but I am interested in talking to someone who is a self-proclaimed expert. And as I said, I'm falling a little behind schedule, so I'll take another Unity dev to kind of serve the role of a level designer. I don't need experts per se, but if you're an intermediate Unity developer, I would be interested in speaking with you. I'll drop my information here in chat and what website info I have, but you can just shoot me a note and we'll talk later. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you, Scott. Adam, next in line.
How's it going? So I'm Adam Creighton. I'm with Enduring Games. We do console development, co-development, high-end stuff for AAA titles. Almost all of our projects are next-gen related, so stuff that's coming out at the end of this year and then into next. We're hiring multiple engineering positions, networking, rich presence, graphics rendering, and then technical art, and more on that higher technical side of technical art. So shader authoring, pipelines, Python, that kind of thing. For all of our engineering roles, it's strong, low-level C++, including modern extensions. We will look at people who are not senior, as long as you're very strong in C++ and low-level programming engineering work. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Adam. Patrick, who also did an excellent job speaking for the Austin Forum just this past week.
Oh, thanks, John. I'm going to turn on my camera for a second. Hey, y'all. I'm Patrick Curry from Farbridge. Thanks to John and Gordon for organizing the meetup. Thanks, Dan and Richard, for giving the talk. I'm looking forward to it. I'll keep this short. We are working on a couple game and non-game projects. We have one need in particular. We're looking for another web front-end developer, specifically in React. So if you are a JavaScript head and know React in and out and made websites and web apps that talk to backend API, I'd love to talk. And in general, we're often looking for contractors. And so whether you're a React developer or anybody, if you go to farbridge.com/outreach, we sort of have like a general like, hey, I'm interested in staying in touch. Here's what I do. Form. You can check that out, fill it out, and we'll holler at you when a need comes up. And thanks so much. Looking forward to the talk. See y'all around.
All right. Thank you very much, Patrick. Anyone else who is looking to hire? This is actually a really good turnout. We only usually have 3 or 4 people that are wanting to do this, but okay. Aaron Talon says that he fixed his microphone. We'll give him one more shot.
Hello?
Hello.
Okay, great. Sorry, I'm so sorry about that.
These things happen. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Hi, my name's Aaron Talon. I just graduated from UTD with a bachelor's in computer science. I'm looking for a job in the gaming industry as a gameplay programmer. I've used a lot of things like LWJGL, Unity, Unreal. I've got a website with a bunch of my projects on there, and I even have a example reel to show a lot of my projects. So I'll go ahead and link that in the chat, and thank you for giving me another chance.
You said UTD, that's UT Dallas, right? Are you from?
Yeah, I'm actually from Austin, but I went to UTD for college.
Why'd you go there instead of here?
Because UT Austin didn't like me too much.
Oh, didn't like you?
Yeah, actually, I wasn't even able to get into A&M. They both didn't like me, but you know, that's just how it is.
Well, maybe that's not something to admit to everyone, but at the same time, hopefully you learn some things and met some people and can apply what you say you know how to do.
Yeah,
Okay, that's all we ask.
not afraid of telling the truth.
There you go, honesty.
That's it. Yeah.
Very good. Well, we have a couple speakers tonight, and again, please pay attention to the chat. We'll have Q&A afterwards, but our speakers tonight are the two main principals behind Electric Hat Games, who are in a very short list of people who have made a small scope but successful VR game of all things about climbing buildings like Spider-Man. Please welcome Richard Matey and Daniel Dunham. Gentlemen.
Clap for ourselves.
I'm gonna close the chat window on our end so that we can see the.
Just move to the
Does
side.
it move to the side?
Side.
All right. Okay, never mind.
Cool, yeah, thanks guys. This is Dan.
Hi, I'm Dan.
Richard. Going along the lines of looking for work and stuff like that. I think we're looking for someone that is good with stylized character art. So something like Overwatch or Fortnite. Nothing too realistic. If that's your passion, that'd be great. And that includes modeling and rigging and animating. That could be 2 people. I'm not really expecting one person to hold down that fort. But that's where we're coming from with that. So cool.
That should work.
Cool. Yeah, so let's get into the presentation. And there we go. So yeah, what is this presentation about? This is really a retrospective of Electric Hat Games, where we're starting from 0 to where we're at now, which is, you know, we're climbing the mountain. We're still lower on the peak. We're not all the way at the top of id Software or anything like that. But hey, we got our own successes, I guess. This is not technical talk. We're not going to get into how we made it or really like tax information or like, you know, setting up your LLC or anything like that. Really what we're trying to show you guys is if you have an idea, you want to make your own games and you just want to put it out into the world and you don't care about anything else, this talk should help you, hopefully inspire you, because that's kind of what we're really about.
This is a way to do it.
This is a way to do it. I don't
Right.
say it's the perfect way, but it's the way that worked for us so far. So, so yeah, I thought it was a good time that we can actually talk about it and go over this kind of road to get here. I want to thank John again for that intro. He's a really great person to talk to. For certainly if you have issues around the community, whether that's good or bad, or just want more info, he's such a great resource for knowing the ins and outs. So definitely hit him up if you know, if you have kind of worries or like you want to kind of speak your mind. John's such a great person and human being. So thank you again for having us. So yeah, so instead of, I just wanted to kind of make a point of, you know, if you're going to waste time with us for an hour or 2, it could be
There's
used in
more
better
important
ways.
things
There's
that
more
could be
important
done right
things.
now,
Yeah, there's a tipping point for sure for change, and hopefully that's really great change. And I think, you know, if you can go and take this time to register to vote, or maybe donate to the campaigns of Campaign Zero or Black Lives Matter, I think that would go really far, especially at this very moment. So, you know, if you wanted to go off now, do that. That'd be fine, perfect. And if you wanted to do that later, if you know, haven't gotten around to it, yeah. So, you know, games are great, and I think in a lot of ways, I'm really proud of this industry. Of, you know, there's a lot of people going through issues and stuff like that, and I think games is such a good resource for just, you know, forgetting it all, getting sucked into a whole new world, and it's been kind of perfect for what we're going through now. But at the same time, we can't just sleep and, you know, hope, you know, just sleep and hope that things get better. You know, you can't just wait and think, oh, okay, you know, things will just work out perfectly. You know, it takes a lot of little actions for us to make big actions. So, so yeah, definitely consider that, and you'll kind of see where my views are. Anyways.
Yeah, it's coming. It gets worse.
So yeah, so I think a really important thing too is whenever you're looking to a presentation, getting to know what they have done. So what we have done is created To the Top, which is a VR platforming game. We're really, really proud of what we were able to accomplish with it. It's an action game, platforming game that is very unique. We were able to sell over 100,000 copies
through PC, PS4, even SideQuest with the Quest. We're super proud of the reviews, getting 9 out of 10s from the official PlayStation magazines and Upload VR. Yeah, I think we're just, what we were able to accomplish that we've been astounded with. And I'll also get into the other game that I made, which is Mr. President, which I'm just very proud of for finding an outlet that I can speak my mind, kind of figure out like a punk rock mentality of getting something out there, which is also the fuel to get to the top done. And I'll show you soon what that's all about. A big note for Mr. President, it has over 1 billion views on YouTube. I didn't crunch all the numbers in Excel, but I'm sure it's up there. You know, past that, I just checked last week, there's like some Spanish YouTuber with 150,000 views on a video from last week, you know, PewDiePie and Jacksepticeye, yada, yada, yada. They all played it. So yeah, I was really, really proud of speaking my mind with that game and getting it to a very wide audience. And yeah, I think they're two sides of a coin of you know, what I've done and what we were able to accomplish. Here's a little accolades. We won some awards. Yeah, you know, we did the best VR sports game. I guess it's a sports game. We'll take it. We showed at the VR awards for, we were nominated for VR Game of the Year. That was awesome. We were part of DreamHack, which was really, really fun. Reviews again, we're able to get on the top sellers of Steam, Itch, not Humble Store. But yeah, we're really proud of
Viveport. It does very well on Viveport.
There you go. So yeah, and then here's a little trailer. If you don't know what the game is,
now you do.
Now you do.
You know. Do what you want. Gotta love what you want. Now be somebody. Ooh, know nobody. Do what you want. Gotta love what you want. Now be somebody. What you want, gotta know what you want now.
To the top, as they say.
If I now escape button maybe.
No, yeah, that'll probably work. There we go. We figured it out. And all right, cool. And then this is
Mr. President.
More satisfying now. We have to deal with everything. And I wanted to we wouldn't get class since we're isolated here talking in front of a computer. So cool. You kind of get to know who we are. We went over that already. The typical size of the teams we'd like to work with, what we kind of manage with, what we're comfortable with is 4 to 6 people. Right now, we're the main full-timers holding the projects together, and then we've been contracting with the other people to help us along the process. With to the top, we had Emily Neo, Kat Wensky, Tracy Hunt, Justin Reese, and Corey Jackson. That was the full team for the initial release. And then obviously we had Panic Button.
Right, for the PlayStation VR.
For the PlayStation VR. So thanks, shout outs. Adam's in the,
Thanks, Adam.
Thanks, Adam. He's here. We're completely self-owned, independent. We didn't look for any VC funding, anything like that. We don't have really any ties, so we can kind of speak our mind, not worry about bull crap.
Too much.
I could say bullshit. I could say bullshit.
I think this is adults only.
Adults only.
Right.
Yeah. Our whole studio outlook is to make games with gameplay first, and then try to make something as original as possible while also looking at games of the past and kind of reimagining those. Yeah, I don't think you'll get a big story, sappy thing out of us ever. But you should play something that you've never seen before. So that'd be fun. We've continued to work with the Austin area. Pretty much everyone that worked on To the Top was from Austin, from all the creators to the music talent. So we're really big proponents of the people around us. And yeah, so we like to grow organically. We're not looking for crazy funding to balloon up to 10, 20 people and try to make a Destiny competitor. We like kind of where we're going. If it gets bigger in a more organic way, that would be awesome. And this is the way we like to do things. So.
I think it's to note the working with studios in the Austin area. I think that's something that is really, keeping it small and stuff makes it really easy for us to do. It allows us to do things like, so I do contract work sometimes with other people to help them out with stuff. And I think for me personally, I really like doing that because it keeps me involved in the community and what's going on and helping further projects forward for everybody in Austin, not just us. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. When we contract with people, we like to look at their strengths and immediately get them on board and like, hey, you're good at this, go do that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
We're not really at a capacity that we can spin all those plates. Like Gordon says, like having a bigger studio requires you to spin all the plates and figure out your dev cycle and what's next and stuff like that. We kind of, put our games out there, get a feel of how it's working, and then, kind of growing organically that way, not worrying about like burdening ourselves too much with projects and deadlines and overhead. Our overhead is pretty minimal. The core themes that I want you to kind of pick up from this presentation is just do it. I trademarked that, so Nike has to pay me. Finding the opportunities, finding where you can get your foot in the door, or just where's the hole at? Where can I put this block into that hole? Being transparent, reaching out to people. And then you'll definitely know that seals slap their belly, which is highly enjoyable, and you can watch that for hours. So, if you need some pick-me-up, just go watch those videos. So where we started, where we kind of met, is at King's Isle. Mm-hmm. That is, look into that now. So we both worked there. It's a studio of 200 people at that time. I'm not sure what
I think it was closer to 300 at the time. It was
closer
big.
to 300.
Yeah.
They're working on Wizard 101, Pirate 101. And originally, I posted on the email chain, hey, check out my silly game jam of Mr. President. This is for Let Him Dare at the time. And I believe Dan was the only one to say, hey, that's neat. Out of 300 people. So that's kind of how we met. That's really how easy it is to meet people, of just saying nice shoes or hey, cool game. Then we started talking, we started doing game jams together after that. So we did stuff for Juegos Rancheros
and Global Game Jam.
Global Game Jams. A lot of those were failures. But yeah, over time, we just kind of got a repertoire of making things and putting things out, getting the feedback, and figuring out like how to work together, which was easy, fun, and free for the most part.
Free, I think, is the important part.
Yeah, and then yeah. So while during that time, we're at KingsIsle. We're part of the rapid prototyping team. I'll put that in quotations. We were supposed to be the new division coming up with mobile games. KingsIsle is known for their
Big
kids to
MMOs.
teens MMOs, which are highly successful. And they wanted to get into mobile space. So we were kind of recruited and put into we were actually closed off from the rest of the studio, so they couldn't even peek in, which is a bad idea.
Yeah, I mean,
don't do that.
I was literally in my own office that was in somebody else's office, so you had to go through 2 doors to get into my little room. It was a little bit like living today, actually, now that I think about it.
Yeah. So it was the opposite of being transparent, even when you're on studio. But I will say that it is, you know, I have to like tip my hat to them for creating a great environment for people. You know, it was very reliable for people. And, you know, if you're a family person, I think it's the best example of a studio that was taking care of people easily and not worried too much about crunch and the rest. But I think over time, I got a bit restless because we were making these ideas and they weren't really going anywhere. It was really an issue with management and switching the gears to get these smaller projects out. It was really, really tough for them because they knew, hey, big MMO, here's one thing every 4 years. They were not ready to make projects in 4 months or 5 months or 6 months, put it out there, iterate on it, you know, have failures, do these other things. And we were there for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of got restless. At that time, there's about a turning point for the studio where they just wanted to go mobile heavy, and Dan got a better offer. He went off and worked with Panic Button, and a lot of great success with them.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the same time, I went overseas. And yeah, we stayed in communications and stuff like that. But I think for me, it was a big learning experience of pulling the trigger and getting things done is really, it definitely takes a skill to just get the guts to.
Right. Well, it takes the acceptance of a certain amount of risk. And I think at the time, KingsIsle was trying to mitigate that risk as much as possible. So they just weren't, like you said, they weren't pulling the trigger on a lot of those projects.
And yeah, and in retrospect, I don't think it was a lot of risk either. I think there's a lot of development time that was wasted. And for me, I actually worked in the Philippines, working with much newer talent and way less resources. And we got a lot more projects done and a lot more successful projects done, a lot smaller time. So it was not an issue of talent or resources or any of the above. It was really getting at the door was locked for us. So even with a pretty steady job, we were both restless and in a lot of ways and kind of split us up. It kind of branched our paths for a little bit. Eventually, I came back to Austin and I needed a place to stay. So I stayed with Dan because he's a nice guy.
And we had the space.
He had a new house, so
yeah,
I could crash that. And yeah, during that time that I was gone, Austin had VR jams. It was the first time people got hands-on with the Vive or
even before the Vive, right?
Because
so VR Austin started up, and it was put together by a lot of the same folks that were doing the Unity Austin meetup at first. Robert Brackenridge, who's in Dallas, I want to say, would come over and do that. And then it was eventually sort of taken over by Alex at Alchemy, and of course Patrick and all those guys started taking over that when it got bigger. But at the very, very beginning, back in the DK1 and 2 days, it was just sort of in the back of Mr. Tramps back there. And that's kind of when, yeah, there was a lot of innovation, sort of a lot of people experimenting with different things in VR at the time. And Richard was like, hey, that's pretty cool. Let's try something. And I think the very first thing he wanted to try was a climbing game. And I was like, that's going to be not fun. And it turned out to be awesome, actually. So, yeah.
Yeah, so it was pretty much over a weekend we kind of nailed down like what the core idea of To the Top was. We had little teleporters for your checkpoints. We had little climbing things. We probably had a crappy jump.
It was okay.
It
was using the Xbox gamepad first, right? Before there was even tracking
controllers.
Yeah.
yeah. So basically, we had our core idea, and I could kind of see the vision of how we could build this in the next 10 years or whatever. Like, it really just sprang from that weekend of fiddling around with something and being like, oh, this is fun, this is different. I think the big thing was tackling the challenge of movement in VR. We knew it was a big issue for a lot of people, and we knew that if we took on that challenge, not many people would be on that avenue. So it kind of freed us with that, and also allowed us to kind of call back to things that nobody else could with platforming games from Mario and Sonic, and we can kind of take these ideas and spring them in a whole new way. So yeah, I think that was a really great experience, and it's such a unique kind of thing, I think, for having a weekend to spend on something and getting a good idea, because there's a lot of jams where you come out with it where you're like, yeah, that's all right. This is
never going to look at that again.
Yeah. And we didn't spend, a full 48 hours on it either. It's only like a couple hours here and there. But yeah, so that's kind of where this idea emerged, was just crashing on someone's couch and working on it on the weekend. At the same time, we kind of kept our day jobs. I went to Port Larian.
Oh, we kind of kept our day jobs.
Yeah.
We didn't kind of keep our day jobs.
We didn't think like, oh, we struck gold.
Yeah.
That was, we wanted to iterate on it. We brought it to events. We brought it to multiple events to get feedback from people. We took it to the Global Game Jam to iterate on it and stuff like that. So we wanted to kind of just keep kicking the tires on it for sure. And this is also before any of the VR headsets were released. So we're talking 6 months before any of the big headsets released. So it wasn't really even a viable avenue for
there wasn't a product to sell it on yet.
Yeah. And we didn't have track controllers and yada yada. Yeah, so I think that's really where it started from. And then this is the Global Game Jam version. I think I'll only play
this
a
one
snippet of
used
it.
the Hydra.
Audio is really bad. So this is about, I would say, 3 months of development, kind of like going back and forth on it.
And then all the levels and all this stuff. This was all built in a weekend, though. Like all the assets and everything that are in here.
Yeah, Jeff Arthur, also
did a lot of the
Austin,
assets.
helped us out a lot. Yeah, and this is also when I was like, oh, let's be realistic and climb Everest. And there's some of the play testers that just jumped into it and then screamed and almost peed their pants, and were like, well, maybe realistic is not the the approach for this yet. Yeah, I think you could kind of see a lot of the core things stayed, obviously with kind of the jumping and moving around. This also wasn't a linear level, so there was little puzzle pieces that you'd bring to the middle and try to unlock this this relic. That was kind of hard to convey to people and didn't really lend itself to having a clear challenge for them to get at. But yeah, we had fun doing it.
Yeah.
It was a good excuse, and even for us, like, this was a game jam and we were coming with some code base, but I think we were also just kind of pushing ourselves and kind of figuring out new things, and there's a lot of things we kind of experimented and kept or just totally threw away. So I think that's also a viable thing to consider if you do a game jam. Is I've done game jams for like 12 years now, 13 years now. It's a long time. I don't really need to build a lot of stuff from the ground up a lot of the time. So finding new excuses and new ways to keep it fresh for yourself, I think is important. So yeah, we'll move on to the next thing.
And never look at that video again.
Yeah, never look at it again, because so at that time, it was a make it or break it moment for me. My Mr. President prototype went through Steam Greenlight. At the time, Steam Greenlight was a really important thing to getting your games on Steam. Now anyone can kind of do it with kind of a $200 entry fee or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
The bars.
I forget how much it is, but yeah, there's a money thing you pay.
Yeah. The gates were open. It was coming to the end of 2016. I knew I needed to get this out to be relative. I had also a lot of thoughts about how shitty Donald Trump was. So I wanted to express that. It seemed that a lot of the time he was just a joke. I still thought he was a threat. So I felt hey, let me put these ideas and express myself in this different kind of way, express it through games. I don't really care about Twitter or Facebook following, so hey, maybe people will get into this and spread a message of, you know,
Well,
yeah.
I think there's an important note to make here is that the game itself, while it's sort of a parody game, it's actually a really fun game too. Like that's the other side of it. It's actually fun and challenging to get through all the little challenges and stuff that are in there. I think that makes it special. So.
Yeah, yeah. Before, when there's a prototype, it was really just two generic dudes, and that was shared about 500,000 times through like a French and German YouTuber. There's no language barrier to the game, and people just get it universally. So I knew there was something there, and I knew it was kind of a platform to say something, and I should say something. So that's why I created it, and it kind of came up to a deadline where I needed to make it in 4 months to get out for October, to be relevant kind of call to action. And that's when I left Portalarium on great terms, and really just spent the time to get out the door. Had some help from local people here and there. Brett and Sewell, who worked on the original prototype. Emily helped me with some sound. Dan helped me get it through the door with Steam. And yeah, it was really just, I had that opportunity and I had to pull the trigger. And that was my kind of just do it moment to get it out there. And I had no preconceptions of what was going to happen after I hit that release button. I literally went to bed at 4 a.m. I think I put some crap in it that I shouldn't have, and hit the release button. And then I woke up with like the game on the Steam front page. It was a little bit easier to get on the front page at that time. And, you know, with all the big YouTubers immediately releasing the video and getting it out there, it was a really crazy response. And to me, it was like, oh, shit, I can keep making games. Because I think at that time, when I left Portalarium, I had about $8,000 to like live off of for, say, 6 months. And this was the capital to, you know, let me live, and then also kind of bring to the top to fruition to get that out the door. So yay, look at that. We got capital and I didn't have to kiss anyone's ass. That's nice. So yeah, you want to get into this part?
Yeah, so once we had some actual money that we could use, Richard just kind of really just went to work. He built a huge chunk of what became the final game himself, but we were also able to contract all the folks that we had listed up above. Most of them were from Kings Isle, and that got us an amazing amount of content in a very short amount of time, which I think was pretty surprising, like how productive everybody was. It was pretty awesome. Over that period of 6 months, we spent about $68,000. Most of the folks that were making stuff for us were just kind of doing it part-time. But I think a big part of making that work was actually paying people up front instead of doing sort of this revenue share stuff. I know that a lot of folks that are trying to do games, like the only thing they have is revenue share, and that's fine. But if you do have the capital to be able to pay people up front, it makes a huge difference. Just in, you know, not only with their security and when working on it, but they, you know, they sort of trust a little bit better about what it is that you're trying to do, and that, you know, this thing is actually going to come out and they're going to see this thing on the store. And yeah, so that was an incredibly productive time for us, because I was still working full-time at Panic Button as well, while doing To the Top at the same time. So, but like Richard said, you know, earlier about making sure that the block fits in the whole, that was an important part of finding with the folks that we were working with how that would go together. And so finding and playing to the team's strengths, I think was a big part of making it successful, because, you know, Tracy, for example, I think was originally hired to do mostly environment art, but he's also a really good level designer. And so he wound up building some of the most complicated levels that we had in the game. So stuff, you know, stuff like that. Yeah, the work environment was very similar to what we have today right now with everybody doing COVID. Most of us were working remotely. We did have a day every week where we got together. It was at my house upstairs, and we would just kind of go around the room and say whatever, we're working on, what bugs need to be fixed, that sort of thing. But yeah, that was, it was very simple, straightforward kind of thing. I don't think anything more complicated than Excel was used for any kind of tracking or anything. So yeah, it was very, very
Maybe
straightforward.
Trello.
Yeah. What's that?
I might have used Trello, but
I think I used Trello for my own stuff, but I don't think anybody else used it. So yeah.
But yeah, another point I think is everyone was pretty self-sufficient. So Tracy was the other level designer. And for the most part, I'd be like, hey, what do you think, Tracy? What's a good idea? And he's like, I got this idea. I'm like, go do that.
Yeah.
And then you'd come back and be, oh, hey, that's awesome. Hey, change this little thing here and there. But for the most part, he was very self-sufficient, and it was really easy to work that out. And as long as you don't have too many interlocking jobs, you could do that. Of just saying, hey, work on this. We'll come back next week. And hey, how does this look? I think that worked really well. And another note I would like to make too is a lot of the people that we did contract, we knew from King's Isle, so we knew how they worked, what they were good at, and that was a big plus that not a lot of people get. But I was able to hit the ground running with a lot of the people that worked on it. And unfortunately, King's Isle had some turmoil times at the time, and we were able to contract them really easy. And I think actually a lot of them went back after that shuffle.
I think almost all of them went back. But also it was really nice to be able to sort of fill the gap when King's Isle was having some trouble and they had to let some people go. Being able to be in a position to help those people is awesome. So yeah.
So yeah, it was another finding the opportunity around us. We knew there's these people here. We had the capital. Let's make this thing. So yeah, for the most part, I would say To the Top had a 2-year dev cycle, but for the 6 months was really crunching down the content and getting this to a complete product. For the most part. And then here's some of the music artists that we had involved. A lot of the people I kind of reached out to, saw them at local shows. Really, really great people. And you might have found the one that wasn't there. That was Seal. He was not a part of our soundtrack. But I'll just make a note about music licensing, since I don't see a lot of people doing it, and I don't think a lot of people know too much about it or tried it out. But for me, a lot of the stuff in To the Top inspired me in a sense that it reminded me a lot of PlayStation 1 era stuff. And at that time, it was the first time you had CD quality music, and music licensing was a big thing. So I kind of wanted to make that connection. I think it's a really good complement to our gameplay. And luckily enough, there's a lot of amazing artists just in the Austin area that we were able to pick from. And this train of thought came from talking to Cactus of Hotline Miami at a Devolver show. They had a concert with a bunch of other music artists, and I basically said, hey, how'd you do it? And he said, hey, I went to SoundCloud. And I said, you want to do this? And they said, yeah. I was like, oh, that sounds easy. And actually wasn't too bad. We came up with a 2-page contract. I wanted to kind of make this personal, so I went to a lot of the people a lot of the artists or the people that were handling them, and kind of worked directly with them. I would say that is the easiest way to kind of get yourself situated, because the biggest thing with music licensing is making sure you have the music license for a long time, so you can keep selling your game on store, and then making sure you have all the store support in your contract. So as long as you have those two things down, you should be good. You still see issues like Alan Wake had to be taken down from the store 5 years, maybe it was 10 years after release, but I feel like that's a problem that you can avoid. And I think if you work with smaller, newer artists, that process is even easier. They're very cool, they're very flexible. When you work with bigger artists or just labels in general, it's a little bit tougher. They'll have their own contracts that they want to negotiate with, and that's just it's not as rewarding either, of just working with the people directly. And I think the music industry is incredibly tough, especially right now. So everyone's open to opportunities and collaborating, and there's so much great stuff out there. Why not do it? It ends costing less to do this kind of music license soundtrack than creating an original soundtrack. And that comes from Kat Winsky, who does Team Audio. Shout out to Team Audio. They're very, very talented, mostly local, but they know their craft. So that's a positive. Less back and forth time to go over, hey, is this a sound? Is this not the sound? None of that. Hey, what you see is what you get. I would say the only downside is if you want to do stuff with YouTube or streaming, some of those people might have their content ID on, and that gets a little bit tougher.
Or their label has it on.
Yeah, their label has it on. A lot of people can't control that. Or, you know, it's to the benefit to have it on, and we get that. I think there are solutions. There are music labels like, what's the cat? Monster Cat?
Monster Cat.
Monster Cat is all about having their stuff shared. Some of them might have it turned off, but also alternatively, if you wanted to have a royalty-free soundtrack kind of switch on your game, I think that's totally possible and something I think we'll look into for the next title. Because the worst thing is seeing like a big YouTuber do your game and they have some crappy royalty-free music that doesn't fit the style that you're looking for. You wanna speak on this one?
So Steam release was, this release was actually pretty straightforward. Richard did a lot of the marketing part, right? Like reaching out to folks, getting them to play it and things like that. Like I said, small budget dedicated to marketing for Steam. Most of the budget there is really just in time, trying to make those contacts and this is part of being transparent, right? Like you don't want to go out and BS these guys. You want to tell them, you know, straight up, this is what we're looking for, and stuff like that. Yeah, the Steam launch went really, really well. VR at the time was still pretty early, and there was nothing like To the Top on Steam. I think there was one game that was, I guess, conceptually close to it. Like when you look at it at first gloss, but as soon as you started playing the game, you realize, oh, these are completely different. And so that kind of put us up on the top sellers list for quite a while. Yeah, putting the game on sale. I think this is all just sort of basic stuff that you do when launching a game on Steam. Take advantage of the sales, pay attention to your numbers, you know, see how you can take advantage of the store to do your updates and get the, you know, get your game back in front of the store pages off, you know, as often as you can, because that's really where you sell your game on Steam. And that includes VR as well as, you know, just your regular non-VR games. Yeah, so even today, our game is still really unique, which is so surprising to me. I thought for sure that, oh, somebody's going to ape our mechanic like super fast, like this is, but they never did. And so that has actually helped keep our sales pretty strong on Steam and Humble as well. Yeah, so you can see here, this is what's in the game. There's a little bit more. There's actually 34 levels, I think, in the game now. It's got a 6-hour campaign, roughly. That's about how long it takes for most people to do it. 12 hours to get everything in the game, and that's not including the multiplayer. So when we did release the game, we originally released it without multiplayer, and then we released multiplayer a few months later, which also helped, again, with that boost of getting the game back up on the front page. So, and if you want to talk about the Discord and the community.
Yeah, and like Dan said, we had a unique game. I think the campaign was much more substantial than a lot of things out there, which was really nice. People could see like the learning curve and, hey, this is something that works out really well. I think word of mouth helped us a lot, and having the smaller audience actually didn't really hurt too much as long as getting our word out there, because, you know, VR is like a bubble in a bubble.
Right.
So talking with people on Reddit, giving out keys, you know, finding the people that are actually talking to this audience was kind of easier than we kind of in your typical type of platform. And then yeah, so I think the one thing that we missed out on is having a Discord on day one. Right. It's a really great resource. I think everyone does it now, but we didn't know about it. So that was really great, and get to know the people playing your game, and it's a much better direct feedback than the forums, where the forums is like, oh, I have this issue, this sucks, versus like, hey, what's going on with this? Oh, hey, this is a thing, and you have that conversation. That was a really, really great tool, and yeah, so that was the release. We did have a big pro for when we released is that we were able to have we didn't have a launch discount.
No.
But we were able to capitalize on this summer sale, which was 8 weeks later.
Right.
So that was actually really a big boost for us. You know, releasing during the summer sale is a death sentence. Don't do that. But if you could find a way to have your little peaks go with the sales, that helps out a lot. So multiplayer, Dan got into, I think is the most significant update. I would say it wasn't
in terms of work, it was a lot of work. Yeah.
I wouldn't say it was a big boost. We got like, for where it was, I think we did.
I think the biggest thing that the multiplayer gave us was more interaction with the community, more than actual sales. But I mean, the interaction with the community was really beneficial for us too, because a lot of the feedback and the information that we got about how people were playing will help us, you know, on the next cycle for making the next part of the game. A lot of that stuff that we learned will go into that. But also, yeah, just the second point there, were the experiment and finding fun game mode, because we were trying to do something that wasn't exactly super competitive. We were trying to make it like friendly competitive, I guess. And I think on that front, we really succeeded, because the community, the multiplayer community that we did get was incredibly well behaved, I would say. Yeah. So
yeah, we were able to make some new friends with multiplayer and get to know people. Like Dan said, it's experimental mode. I think for anything, this is the most experimental side to the top, because it's kind of modeled after Trackmania. You go into a course, you could run it as many times as you want. You post the best times, but you could also lay down little helper pads or jump pads and air bubbles and stuff like that. It was Death Stranding before Death Stranding, for sure.
And not nearly as persistent. But.
No, yeah, not as dark and creepy. But yeah, it was just like, hey, let's see if this works. And for me, I play a lot of shooters. I know the banter sucks, you know, a lot of friction between the players. So this is a mode that had zero friction. I think we had a really great outcome with it, because we never had to moderate the game or the Discord or even have a motivation to do it. Everyone was really nice and chill and had a good time. At the same time, I think we didn't have that one dopamine moments of like, oh, I got this headshot and I'm doing this thing, and I'm all these great adrenaline rushes which you get from a shooter or a racing game or anything else that has these little sections. And I think that was, you know, kind of helped out with the banter. There's not the friction points, but also it wasn't something that was sticky and kept people in there for hours and hours. So I think for us, you know, for figuring if we were going to do a multiplayer mode, we would do it much differently and make sure those sticky moments are in there, and then it would be very robust. So I wouldn't even think about doing just a side multiplayer mode, because for us, it added a lot of costs. It was very difficult to get it to different platforms.
Yeah, unless you can make it really, really sticky, for sure. Yeah, you don't want to.
And for me, I think it's better as a separate product or something that, you know, it's complementary in some kind of way that isn't just it was a little tagged on, you know, a little tagged on. It's not a focus. Like 90% of what my focus and what the audience focus should be is the campaign, and it makes sense. So yeah, I think we learned a lot of lessons. It was, yeah, like Dan said, I thought it was very, very rewarding to jump into the game and have fun with the community, and it was fun. It's different. We had a whole like play session every week on PlayStation VR.
To the Top Tuesdays.
Yeah, to the Top Tuesdays. So I kind of made note of it, of like, hey, I know this game is not going to have players 24 hours, but let's set a date and let's have some fun. And we're successful in that aspect. But yeah, if we're going to do multiplayer again, it'd be very, very different.
But just going back to like the design part of the multiplayer, on the technical side, not to get too technical, but this was a very conscious decision that we made up front, that we kind of knew that we weren't going to have a huge multiplayer player base. And so we did not do dedicated servers. Like we knew right up front, this is going to be a peer-to-peer thing, so that when people get on to play, like if there's somebody else online, they're going to connect with that person. They don't have to do a server. We don't have to do any server maintenance or any of that stuff. It's just sort of lightweight multiplayer. Yeah.
Yeah, and if we wanted to be serious, I think VR needs crossplay for all the different systems. But we're not serious. So yeah.
So PSVR. So so this was kind of an interesting thing, and we have Adam in the audience, who was actually a huge, huge help in getting this game out for PlayStation VR. So what happened? So this is a very sort of unique, I think, publishing relationship. I haven't had a lot of publishing relationships, so maybe there's other folks that can speak more to this, but I think it's pretty rare to have you know, to be an employee of a company that then publishes your game. And that's kind of what happened, because I was still working at Panic Button full time. I was keeping Adam and everybody up to date on how the game was going and what we were doing. It became apparent that PlayStation had probably the largest pool of VR users very, very quickly, and that this would be a good platform to bring the game to. And so we came to a really, you know, interesting agreement very quickly that, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. And it worked out actually really, really well. I would say the only downside was the cost of the port was fairly expensive. And on Panic Button's side, they definitely took a risk at doing this with us, which we're super grateful for. But in the end, compared to you know, our Steam launch and stuff like that, the numbers were comparable. Like the number of users we got on across both platforms were pretty similar. But because the cost of the PS4 port was so much higher, the revenue wasn't quite as much. So there was that. We did get great reception. We got this tweet from Yoshida-san, which was just kind of mind-blowing. And yeah, and you know, PlayStation VR YouTubers love it. I still am in contact with some of those guys. As a matter of fact, I did a podcast with them a couple weekends ago in a format similar to this. That was awesome. So yeah, the PSVR release was a lot of work. And I think that we weren't in the red on it, but we weren't like, it didn't make us enough money to where like, we can just do this and this is what's going to pay for the next game. But in my mind, at least, it was worth it because it was fantastic doing the work and getting it out there and getting the community and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it's the difference of like shoestring budget with us and then real game development.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's profitable. It's successful.
It was profitable. Yeah.
So we're really, really proud of that.
And it wasn't just profitable for us. I think it was also profitable for Panic Button, which was the thing personally that I was worried about, right? So,
sure.
Yeah.
So thanks again for Adam and Panic Button. That's for me, it's a dream come true for sure. Of getting it out there. A huge PlayStation fan. Like I wouldn't be a game developer without what the PlayStation brought to gaming, and we had box copies.
That's right. Yeah, we did the
limited run,
and that was also an Adam thing. Oh my God! Yeah, he put together the limited run physical copies with the soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was awesome.
And then that review from the PlayStation magazine is kind of just some bucket lists checked off, which is awesome. Super, super grateful. We'll kind of run through a little bit of extra releases. So I would say, Steam and PSVR are our main releases that that had the most, I guess, gunpowder in the keg.
Yeah.
That we're really happy for. But I would say also make sure to keep your eyes open for other opportunities. I think Humble Store is a really, really great resource for. All they do is sell Steam keys, but hey, it's another storefront that you can get eyes on. They have sales. It's pretty easy to get on there, pretty easy to keep maintenance on it.
And you can do the thing where you swap your sales back and forth between Humble Store and Steam. Yeah.
And now they have a Switch side, so all that stuff's really good. We've never done any of the Humble Bundle stuff. I kind of did like Indie Gala with Mr. President, which I would not recommend. So we can't really speak on actually doing big bundles and if that's beneficial to you. For us with the VR side, it kind of is not because we have a small audience and we have to kind of make sure that audience pays us because that's how that works. But with also the VR side, we have other little smaller opportunities that might not be available for you. We did like VR arcades with Springboard VR, which is really easy to set up as well. They just work through Steam. We have Viveport, which
so there were some interesting things, and it might be VR specific, and it might not. It just depends. It's another one of those, look for the opportunities and sort of just do it. But for some of these releases, we were able to have them paid for up front because we knew that we're probably not going to make the money back on this port. Maybe the platform holder is interested in just going ahead and paying like a fee up front in order to recoup those costs for us on our end. And a lot of them were very down to earth about that. So that was actually, that's one way that, you as a developer might be able to bankroll, at least some of your development is actually getting, if you're going onto a new platform or something like that, seeing if they'd be willing to help, bring the game to their platform.
Yep. Yeah, we also, not everything's roses. We did have some snags with Oculus. We did get on Oculus Home, but we had some issues on Quest. So we kind of took it on our own hands and released it in SideQuest through itch.io. And that was actually really cool to actually, it might be the best version of To the Top we've made. And it's completely without wires.
It's wireless.
It's got a nice little UI front and everything like that. But yeah, I think even if we have some roadblocks, we'll try to bulldoze through that. So here's some lessons from the sales. So if you are creating a game and you want to actually get a ballpark of, hey, how successful is that game? What am I shooting for? Because obviously if you shoot really high, like I'm gonna make the next Stardew, how much did that make? You'll make a fraction of it maybe, but you can go to steamspy.com and get a relative number of what it is. It's not going to be the exact number, but you get the kind of ballpark of, hey, did they sell 1,000? Did they sell 100,000? Did they sell 1 million? It at least gives you a ballpark. Steam was supposed to make a tool to replace this, but they never have. They said that about a year and a half ago, but hey, it's still
very opaque.
As far as like sales that are kind of easier for the public to reach. That is, I think, a good tool for that. For me, like if you also look at the numbers and kind of figure out like, okay, this sold 50,000, right, or whatever. You work out kind of your simple math of, oh, it's $20. Oh, this is the money they made. Might be in the right ballpark, but also consider that your storefront's usually going to take 30%. Taxes takes 25-30% of that. You're going to get 50% back of that gross revenue.
There's a large percentage of your sales that are going to happen during sales.
Yeah, for sure. So if you think you need to make $1 million, you need to make $2 million to actually get that back into your pocket and back into your capital. For boosting your sales, the front page is king. I think any of the store features is the #1 way to actually get sales. I could be wrong about that, but that at least seems to be the attention and the experience that we've had so far. And cracking that front page, there's different opportunities of fitting into one category or the other, but once you actually get into those top sellers, like your 3% sellers that keep getting featured and keep getting featured, I think that's kind of your biggest money makers. So, every time you open up Steam and look at like, oh, Killing Floor 2's on here again, or GTA 5, oh, Skyrim.
Right.
I've never heard of Skyrim. You realize that's kind of where you're cracking the bubble to making a lot of money. Everyone else is just making some sales here and there and getting the little gas where they can. And also when you're releasing to a specific platform, there's different preconceived notions of what those people are coming there for. With our side, with Steam, a lot of the VR users are kind of in the sim space. They want to have some military sims or whatnot, and they might not.
Mods. They love mods.
Yeah. So they might not understand your basic understanding of platformers and how they work or how your power-ups do a thing. So kind of, keep note of that. Like even Steam didn't have platforming as a label on Steam, which I find is crazy. But then they also didn't have such widespread controller support like 5 years ago. So, how you need to teach the audience how they receive it could be very different. I think with PSVR, it was very easy connection of like, oh, okay, I see what you're putting down here very easily. Versus some people that could get hung up of like, I thought this was a simulation. Why isn't this like the real world? So there's that. And also I think be considerate of some of those stores might not be capable of supporting your full-time development. So I think, a lot of people like itch.io, so easy to say. I think it's a great way to get feedback and put things out there. It's the easiest way to get your games into the public. But I think at the same time, the amount of income and the amount of people that are ready to spend money is more for the hobby level kind of developers. I don't think you're going to get a lot of revenue that way. But hey, if you want feedback, if you want to get into the world and see if people give a crap about what your game is, not bad, but be considerate of where you can actually make that money and who's ready to spend and how did they spend, what is their price points. And I think for us, we take advantage of as many sales as you can. This might be a different philosophy than anyone else, but for the most part, we like to keep the word of mouth out there and find the price point that works for each person.
Well, I think it's not just about the price point. It's also when you go on sale, they put your game up higher, on the list. It depends on the sale, right? Like the Steam Summer Sale, all the games are up there, so it's not as big. But there are other smaller sales. When you get involved in those, there's less titles, but they promote those titles, and so that helps out a lot.
And Steam, PlayStation, or even Humble Store reach out to you to have specific sales, which highlight a handful of games, and those are like much more beneficial than just saying it's on sale this week. Oh, check it out. This is a majestic seal. Oh, look at that. Thank you, Shutterstock and Kyle, for giving us this image. I think that was to show how to stand out. I think that is a big part that I think a lot of indie developers or people that are starting out might be something that's overlooked, but finding the opportunities and how you're going to sell the game, I think is hugely important and really makes you step back from the product. So in my mind, there's two big factors of selling a game. If you're just going to sell it out of your car or whatever, it needs to be original or it needs to be the best in class. I think if you boil down your game into those categories and figuring out which one it is, I think you're going to be much more beneficial to how you're going to get this game done or get attention. I think for best in class, you can look at Call of Duty as in the shooter space, especially this year's. It's freaking incredible. They put like billions of dollars almost. They just threw all the money at it for the most part. And, they're not trying to be the most original. They're trying to be the top tier. And, for you, if you wanted to make a shooter, you have to figure out why would someone buy this over Call of Duty or whatever. And if you don't have a good reasoning, then get out of that space. I think it would be incredibly hard to come out with, hey, this is a side-scrolling pixel platformer. Okay, well, why is it that much different? Your reasoning has to be that much greater, or you have to put that much more time and effort into it. That I think is very unrealistic for indies and smaller titles or anyone else to care about. So, that's one avenue, is being best in class. I would say, very out of reach for many, many, many people. Even people with big budgets, they'll miss the target on that. But for independent developers, being original, I think, is more important and more important.
Also more realistic.
More realistic. Something with new gameplay mechanics, new way of doing this. I think Minecraft is such an easy example to point at and be like, oh, there's nothing out that was like that at the time. Hugely successful. There's a lot of copiers after the fact, but they had original aspect. You could even find opportunities that maybe not be very original on paper, like Stardew Valley, which is a copy of Harvest Moon. But they found that hole.
Yeah, and it's long enough time away that, this is original again.
Right.
But yeah.
So I think that's very much a way to back off from your product and figure out those two factors. And, it could be a little column A or column B, but it's going to help you be more confident with selling it and finding an audience and standing out, getting the attention, and giving a reason why I need to play this. Why do I need to put time into it? Why, I'm going to spend money. Why?
And so if it's not obvious from to the top, our goal was being more original than, as far at least graphic fidelity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think we nailed the originality for sure.
For sure. Even then, we look at a lot of old ideas of platforming games, and we're putting in first person, we're doing it this particular way. That's original, right. And that we could learn from so much stuff in the history. And every time we bring it back, you've never seen it done this way. So,
well, I mean, a good example of that is Doom. Not to turn it into a conversation, but I mean, that's kind of what Doom has done too in 2016. Like when they brought Doom back, they were like, how do we make this? And they can do both, right? Doom is a good example of doing both. They did best in class, like it looked fantastic, and it was also very original.
Very original. Yeah. So many of those mechanics no other shooters have. So that was a little column A, column B, but I think you should look at column B if you're doing your own thing. So yeah, why would you do this? Why would you do this to yourself? You know, you're kind of throwing a lot at the wall. I think for me, it's, and hopefully for Dan as well, ownership. So this is really you owning a product out there. You know, you're putting this out into the world. You know, there's not many things you can claim ownership of over time. You could buy some land, that could trade hands, whatever. But I really feel that this is, you know, our game. We put it out there. We own this. Whatever surrounds it is very satisfying. And you know, it only takes being around Richard Garriott for 20 minutes until he brings up about how mad he was about selling
Origin.
Ultima and Origin, that you feel like, oh, okay, maybe ownership is important. So I think that is a big factor. Freedom, you know, it's really us making the game. We don't really.
It doesn't always feel free. Sometimes, I mean, I think that's just a general thing in indie development, though, right? Like at some point, you become a slave to your own. It's like, oh my God, I have all this stuff that I have to get done. But it is still very freeing, right? Because nobody else is, hey, what are you doing today? You don't have the producer coming around by your desk going, hey, what'd you do today? What's your Jira task look like?
Yeah, so that could be a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
But you know, if you don't, you know, if you're not a person that say doesn't like authority figures too much, like okay, you might be more inclined. You know, we removed the ceiling of success. You know, for us, we know what the sales are. We know what the data is. We know that, you know, the kind of the gates are open if we are successful. There's nothing getting in the way of that, which I think is great, because I think a lot of people that work in a studio might not know what those numbers are,
right?
You know, if their product actually is successful, or whatnot. And I think
or why.
Yeah. If you're not, you know, tapping on that button and figuring that out, you'll just keep on doing the same thing. And then for me, it's really just like connecting with the audience. What I put down, you know, I think I really speak a lot through my level design and coming up with the mechanics. And when you connect with somebody, you know, I think it's a pretty deep level of like, it's almost like a conversation of like, hey, check this out, do this. And when you can do that with hundreds of thousands or millions of people, it's really satisfying. And even if they might not buy the game, but watch it on YouTube, and get some laughs.
I mean, yeah, I think
that's awesome.
Yeah, just looking at it that way, you know, we have, you know, in the hundreds of thousands of sales, but the game has had tens of millions of views from YouTubers and stuff playing it. And so a lot of people know about the game, and that's incredibly satisfying when you go to an event somewhere, you know, and you're talking to somebody that you've never met before, and you're talking, well, what do you do? Oh, I do this thing. What do you do? Oh, I made this game called To the Top. I was like, oh, I know your game. That's pretty.
Yeah, that's really awesome.
Yeah.
And you know, there's no buffer between us getting the game out, what is in the game, and them as the audience receiving it. So there's no caveats of like, oh, you like that level, but you know, Bob told me to make it blue, so it's not really my level. So I think that was really, really satisfying. Shotgun advice. So we're almost done. Don't worry about it. I think setting realistic goals is hugely important for getting something out of the door. I think for us was just, hey, could this be possible? Could we get a game out on Steam? Could we get on PlayStation? I think that was our goal. It wasn't that, you know, millions of sales and you know, creating the next MMO or whatever. I think we kept it very realistic, and I think that's very important for getting it out, especially with.
Well, I think the other benefit for having realistic goals is things that you can actually achieve help you to achieve the next goal, right? Because if you set a goal that's too far out and you can't get there, then you go, okay, well, I got to make a new goal, and maybe you pull that in, but then there's this psychological loop that you get in. Well, I didn't make it last time, so I don't know if I'm going to make it this time. Whereas if you can make the goals definitely attainable, then as those goals get more and more, you know, difficult to reach, you still have a you know, that sort of forward momentum in your mindset. So it makes it a little, just feels better when you can actually achieve your goals.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think, yeah, there's a lot of people that just, you know, I think I saw it in the Unreal Facebook forum where someone was posting about their Ninja game. They're like, I need to sell 500,000 of copies of this. And it's like, well, that's probably impossible.
Yeah.
So, you know, setting those realistic goals is really good. And, you know, if a goal is just to get it done and out there, awesome, perfect. You know, if it's just to get a jam done, or, you know, like I said, put it on Bloody and Dare or itch.io and get feedback, that is definitely a step.
Yeah.
anything you do is a step to, getting something more successful. I would recommend making something that has the immediate fun. There's a lot of games that you can design that maybe only become fun at the end, like 75% through the development. You're like, oh, now this is fun. I get it now. And I think
Well, I mean, how many Polygon or IGN articles do you read about the game where they're like, well, the game doesn't really start to become a game until 2 hours in, and it's like there's a lot of games that are like
yes, that is one point for sure. But I think even in development, if you're not, for us, I think I found immediate fun with Mr. President. We found immediate fun with To the Top.
It took a day of development to get to where this feels fun.
Yeah. You could see that it's already fun, and just making that development easier because you're not like, shit, I gotta make this thing. Is this good or not?
Before I can get to the fun part, I gotta have a menu and an inventory.
So that really helps with getting your first games out for sure. Trade shows and events. I think, doing a couple of those, we've done
a bunch of trade shows, but I think this is a point that gets lost. And I think it depends a lot on where you're making your games at, right? Like we're really fortunate here in Austin that we have these trade shows here locally. And a lot of times you can get into those trade shows for an incredibly low cost, right? Like John runs, and VGMU, they usually have a booth and they'll very often, very generously let indie developers borrow that booth for some time, right? And that's great. But our experience with the trade shows has been often doesn't actually translate into sales. It does help with feedback though. So, you get immediate feedback at those trade shows. But if you are planning on going to trade shows, don't spend tens of thousands of dollars to go to insert coast here to spend 3 days and do the trade show. It's just, for a game like an indie game, it's probably not worth it to do that.
And then, we live in Austin, so the events that we can go to and the opportunities that come to us is probably the easiest anywhere else.
Right.
So yeah, it is beneficial in that way of getting the feedback, getting it out there. We meet people that have already played the game. That's awesome. And I think, for us, it was polishing the initial user experience was hugely beneficial because you never want to watch a demo where there's just one point where people just don't get it. You watch that like 60 times. And like,
more than 60 times because you're doing it all 3 days of the thing and you're like watching this, oh my God, over and over, it's this part again. Yeah.
So you'll definitely improve that first user experience significantly. But yeah, don't expect it to be like a surge of sales or things like that. Well, maybe it could work for you, but for doing
our experience, this is based on our experience.
Be realistic of the cost benefit of that. And then I would say like another piece of advice is when you're developing your game and getting critiques from other game developers, which is very, very likely you'll do, take it with a big grain of salt of what they're coming to you with, because that'll be your most biased audience, I found.
Right.
And it's good to get the advice, but you have to actually figure out, like, these people want to do it this particular way. This is the way they tackle it. This is where their feedback comes from it. And I found it's it can be a very distracting critique versus just throwing it out there willy-nilly as possible of, getting people at trade shows that who knows where they came from, who knows what games they played in the past, or putting it out on the internet where it's just out in the wild.
Yeah, the anonymity there actually helps you out because they don't care what they say. And yet, whereas at a trade show, they'll be a little bit more reserved and they might be like, yeah, that was a great game, and then they leave. And it's like, well, that's not particularly useful.
Yeah.
But yeah, on the internet, like itch.io is actually a good example there, right? Because you can put your game on itch, lots of people have access to it, and they're not afraid to say whatever it is that they're going to say about the game. So
yeah, you always have to figure out where the feedback's coming from, and I think the most irritating, to contradict myself, the most irritating feedback I think we ever get, and most developers probably do, is on your Steam reviews. People play it for 5 minutes, they're like, too easy.
Right.
This game's too easy.
That's not, sometimes you just have to filter it out.
And yeah, you just have to file that away. Don't get rude with people. Say, hey, thanks for the feedback. Move on. You get no benefit of fighting that fight. But yeah, know where your feedback's coming from, and I would say, like, try to get it out to a mainstream audience as easy and quickly as possible wherever you can find that. for yourself. Yeah, we're nearing the end, so I thought we'd give a little treat, a little preview of what we've been cooking up with To the Top 2.
That's not going to be the name of the game.
That's not the name of the game. That's a shitty name. The SEO is already really bad. That would be worse. So yeah, you know, I would say don't share this too much. This is like pre-alpha. This is just a little cherry on top that you made it this far. But here's some concept art of our hero, Kit. There's an enemy in the background that's gonna punch him in the noggin. But yeah, for us, we're one of the kind of points that we kind of overlooked with the original To the Top is graphic fidelity. And I think at that time, the headset resolution wasn't that great. We had to worry about all this other stuff.
Most people didn't care.
Yeah,
honestly. Yeah, even on PlayStation, people were like, "This looks great. Yeah, no, this is fine." But now that's starting to change. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's starting to change, and for us, we do want to flesh out this world and make it more rewarding, get closer to what people expect from a platforming game with all those bells and whistles and you know, all those great features. Because we, you know, we're pretty bare bones with the first one, so we want to expand it. And visually, that's we have a lot of room.
One avenue to go on. Yeah.
So this is a piece of concept art. We'll have different places around the world.
Don't worry, we won't have Mario.
Yeah, we don't have Mario. Definitely don't share this. Yeah, I think that'd be a really fun thing. It's kind of a world tour of going around to these different places in the world, different things that, different cultures, different. I want it to feel like a journey, and an easy way to do that, because obviously you're moving, is to find all these fun and unique places. Some of them could be inspired by the real world or taking place in the future, but have some kind of footing in the past. So you can kind of see two different areas that we'll kind of flesh out and explore. And this is a little pre-alpha, little run through of, it's not really for major out there consumption, but yeah, you can get a feel of how our game's shaping up. You know, we're still early on, but I think we're really excited about the future of To the Top, and I think it's going to be a crap ton of fun once we get done with it. So this is a more European kingdom type setting. All the levels will take place on giant floating cities. So yeah, so you can feel free to explore as much as you want. You might fall off.
I guess this is like
fall to thousands of feet, but
future Tuscany, I guess maybe.
Yeah,
Neo Tuscany.
Neo Tuscany. You know, it's very. One of the themes I wanted to go with, I love cyberpunk, but there's so much stuff that's similar to
We're
cyberpunk.
living in cyberpunk right now.
Yeah, we're living in cyberpunk. You know, everyone's seen a rainy street with neon lighting and stuff like that. So this is cyber pop.
There you go.
So you're having fun, you're jumping around. There is a motivation for the player, obviously. We won't get into that. But yeah, we're really fleshing out the world and giving you like all new fun challenges. And I think it's very rewarding and still nothing quite like it in the space.
Yeah, still, yeah, this is still, I'm super happy that this is still very unique. Yeah.
So cool. Yeah, I think we'll stop it there. We don't have a
It's kind of boring,
yeah,
if you watch it too long.
So that's it. You made it this far. You can't hear him.
Oh, we got the
actual student. He's part of our win. I want to say thanks to Tom Henderson. I don't know if we'll just take it down. I'm going to do.
I don't know. Is this going out to YouTube, John?
Hey, yeah, you may want to stop that.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Well, go look it up.
Fun.
Go look it up. It's a great song.
Go look it up.
Kiss from a Rose. So thanks, John and Gordon, for putting this together. It's a very thankless job to put these things together, and these guys do such a tremendous job doing it that I wanted to say. Belly slap for John. Belly slap, Gordon. Thanks for paying buttons for helping us out. Adam's doing Enduring Games are pretty awesome, and everyone that's helped us make games so far. It's terrific. And then there's our email if you have further questions, but John, did you want to take a break?
Yeah, let's take a break. So I got 8:35 on my clock. I'm going to pause the video and come back at 8:45. How about that?
You're going to pause it? Okay.
All right, we are back after our break, and just wanted to acknowledge something I didn't do at the very beginning when not everyone was here, is that Capital Factory has been the host of this show for the past 2 years that Gordon and I have been doing it, and for many years when it was under previous management, and we're using their Zoom. So thanks very much to Alex Wiesenthal and the event staff at Capital Factory for making this all happen. We didn't have to visit them, but they're making this happen virtually, just like we're all here. So everyone that has questions, I'm going, like I said, since I know what his question is, I'm going to start with Scott Porter. We'll go with questions for Richard and Dan.
Now's the hard part of the talk.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks, John. Appreciate that. Guys, thanks so much for the information. It was really helpful. And I have to say, when you were first starting off, you made the comment that you were doing this part-time, still working your day jobs and then just getting this off the ground. And I imagine that's a scenario a lot of people can find themselves in. And to that point, you mentioned eventually getting some cash in hand. I think you mentioned a $68,000 core budget. And my question to you is, how did you go about deciding where to spend that budget, that money? What did that process look like for you? And then if you can paint a broader picture as to how you distributed that cash, what went to programming, art, music, travel.
You are a funny guy, because there was no plan, not really in the sense that you think. Essentially, I think with Tracy, it came down to how do we help Tracy out, right? Because he got laid off and he really needed help. And so we're like, okay, we're bringing him on essentially full-time, right? So we gave him full-time salary. For everybody else, it was, what's your hourly rate? We're going to pay that. But we didn't really okay, this is how much for sound, or this is how much for art, this is how much for programming. Because the $68,000, to be honest, the $68,000 was what we spent. But I didn't calculate, well, how much of my time, because my salary wasn't calculated into that. That was just, I was working, I was able to pay the bills, it's fine, and I'm just going to spend all the rest of my free time doing this. Whereas some other developers that I've heard, they're very meticulous about tracking exactly how much time they've spent and how much time that's worth. And maybe that, to me, and maybe it's just a personal thing for me, but I don't think it's worth that much, because I was doing it because I wanted to do it. I was doing it because I was going to do it anyway, whether or not I was, doing it to the top and doing this production, or if I was just doing something else on my own. So to your question, that's really hard for us to answer, because we honestly didn't do a good job of planning and tracking that. Our goal was, let's make this game and let's finish it. Richard had a vision for the things that we wanted to have in the game, and we're just like, we're going to hit all of those notes, and we're going to pay whatever we can to get there. That was it.
Yeah.
What happened when you ran out?
What's that?
What happened when you ran out of cash? Surely you did.
We didn't.
We didn't run out.
We kept costs pretty low. I think the easiest one was, we did have buckets of hey, this is the upfront bucket, right? This is our, I think 50,000 was kind of the first, here's what we're going to pull from. Right. And I think for music license, it was the easiest to decide, because each of the tracks had a specific cost. It was pretty much the same, because I think the people that do music licensing and stuff like that, it's kind of a non-compete kind of thing of
what do they call it? Worldwide. It's basically they have a licensing thing that they do where whatever you're paying one licensee, you have to pay the same to everybody.
The max.
The
highest max.
Right. And that was something that we learned that we didn't know before. And apparently that's not just in music licensing. Apparently this is a thing that actors will do too, where in their contracts they'll be like, hey, I need to be paid at least as much as anybody else that's getting paid. And so that was,
that's reasonable. It was not out of the question. That was easy. And then really it was just figuring out like people's, like you said, hourly costs, and then figuring out like, this is how long it takes them to make it. You know, what is the time frame? Because that's also the constraint of what you're producing. And then we just knew it kind of fit in that box. And then, yeah, we just kind of ran with that. And then as far as overhead, we didn't really have any overhead at the time.
Right.
We didn't have offices.
Everybody was using their own equipment.
Yeah.
For the most part. We did have some really good fortune though, because as far as dev kit hardware, a lot of that was sort of donated to us, and that helped out a lot too. Now, that being said, we aren't doing that on this production. This production, we're being much more deliberate about what our sort of lanes are, like how much money we're spending in each lane, what our burn rate is, how much time we have, all that stuff. So.
All right, thanks, Scott. William Mearns.
That's a great question, though.
Yeah, so I apologize if I missed this in the beginning, but you guys kind of started off with your history at King's Isle. And my question is more along the lines of, I've been doing indie dev, but I've yet to break into a studio. And so my question is like, is there anything specific to work towards and to breaking into the industry at higher than an indie level?
So I don't know if I would consider higher than indie level a thing. I think it just depends on where it is that you want to work, right? I think there's this, so as just a little side note to your question, there is kind of this mindset that AAA is sort of above indie, and I don't think that's necessarily true. But if you want to work in AAA, so the way that I did it personally was I started in my school. I did the game development club, and I got speakers to come and talk for our school events. And then from there, I was able to get an internship at Junction Point Studios, which was my first job before King's Isle. And that was kind of my, okay, you're now in the door into game dev. And in Austin specifically, the community is fairly tight knit. So when it was time to try to find a new place, I already had Epic Mickey on my resume, and then I could go to King's Isle where there were some other people that I knew on the engineering side and be like, hey, I worked on this. Do you guys have any positions open? It made it a lot easier. So, I mean, that's my specific story. Richard, what was yours like?
No, I think, there's two folds really to your question is like, I think, yeah, getting to a studio is a great learning experience. You get to work with people. If you can get stuff out in the public and learn from that, that's terrific. If you can lead teams without spending your own money, that's really nice. There's also another section of that too, of like some studios aren't really cool with you making your own stuff on the side. Because if you're an indie developer, you're probably going to keep on making stuff, even if it's in or out of the studio. King's Isle was not very cool about that. And they kind of try to enforce something they couldn't with like how much ownership they have of what people go out and do in their real life. Knowing now and, speaking to some legal folks, they didn't have any recourse for that. With that, it was kind of toothless, but at the same time, it's a bad mentality to have versus someone like Panic Button and the crew there that was able to let Dan make it and actually help him. So yeah. That was.
Well, I mean, in Panic Button, it's not just me, right? Like Phil did Battle Sloths.
Battle Sloths, yeah. So when you look for that environment, like, cool, you can get a steady job, but also factor that into if you want to keep making stuff on the side or being creative out of that space. They might not be able to enforce, anything on you, but it might create some friction between you and that studio.
Yeah, so I guess as far as the second part of your question there about going from indie to like a bigger studio, AAA type of studio, we're the wrong people to ask because we didn't go that way. Because I went straight from school into Junction Point, which I guess at the time was AAA, it was Disney. Yeah. And then you went from school to King's Isle. Was King's Isle your first?
No, I worked, what the heck is it? The studio called Fun Guy.
Fun Guy. Okay.
Which was like based in Phoenix in the Philippines. And that's where I ended up kind of really starting my career. And living there for 2 years and kind of heading those projects up. They're on a much smaller scale. It's kind of the same scale now,
Yeah.
but
I think
more hands-on.
What Sean said in the chat is the big thing, though, right? Like networking, getting out, doing what you're doing right now.
Yeah,
is
for sure.
is the way, is how you get there.
Congratulations, you did the right thing by showing up tonight. But to point one other thing out is that the difference between a studio of some means and an indie studio is what you might call AAA or something with a building in it. They usually have people whose job it is to do the everything else that is not necessarily game development, but is essential for people to get payroll on time, people to get facilities, people to fill the vending machines, producers to keep people on task, people whose job it is to interface with license holders and publishers such that there is continual work being funneled through the studio and they don't have to lay anyone off. That's what their usual concerns are, and to keep the business as a whole solvent enough such that they can do what they are without having to shut down. Whereas if it's just a few guys with $68,000 to spend, they can keep to their principles a little bit more because they don't have as much to risk. Anyway.
That's a great point. And I think, when you're doing the indie stuff, you wear many hats. And a lot of this stuff keeps you up at night. And like, if you have to pay people and, some, they're just like, I put the don't do revenue share thing in that because I saw some shady development stuff of this project's never going to go off. And this guy has terrible business practices. One was, changing the Glassdoor critiques where everyone that joined the project had to give him a positive review, and he doesn't pay anyone. It's all revenue share. That shit sucks. And if you're a human being, worrying about other people's livelihood is very, very hard. So yeah, having your footing in a studio, and it might not be the most passionate thing you're about, but if it gives you this environment to learn from and get better, that's fantastic.
If you have real money to spend, it's better than that, than leveraging your non-existent social capital. Anyway, Joe Sabin. Sorry to make you wait.
Hey, no, it's all good, guys. So just a bit of background. I'm a extroverted introvert, so any kind of talking is a complete facade and a defense mechanism. So thanks for taking a question. So I actually have a bunch, but I'm probably going to have to go offline at some point to get some of those answered, and I got you guys' email addresses. So my big one was the one that just got asked, so now I'm calling an audible, and I'm going to ask another one. So I had a question specifically about how big of a deal is it that Unity is adopting the OpenXR standard? So my background is, for the last 2 years, I've been involved with a virtual reality pilot program here in Austin. I'm actually active duty military and on the way transitioning out, and so I'm looking to try to take that experience that I gained in that learning and game-based learning paradigm that I really tried to institute there, but obviously the military is probably the worst customer you could probably work with as far as getting things done, turns out. So I'm looking to see how big of a deal is this this tech stack, and the other part of that is the Unity Mars subscription. Is that a complete waste of time?
Okay, so I was also Army. I flew helicopters for about 10 years. So yeah, there's a little bit to unwrap there. So I'm going to do the easy part first, working for the military, doing some kind of tech thing. It's actually not a bad idea because it can be very, very stable. Even though things move very slowly, depending on where you're working, right? And I'm thinking of working for KBR or working for, some of these places that are doing tech for different branches of the military. It can be super stable. Right, you never have to worry about getting you're just never going to get laid off or whatever. So that's one thing. As far as this tech stack goes, so there's a couple of different things there. There's Mars and there's the XR initiative. So, in my opinion, this is my opinion. Mars is a kind of a cash grab by Unity. I think that a lot of the tools and things like that they're putting into this are cool, but I also think they're not planning on giving them away for free. And I think that if you've been working with VR or AR for a while, you probably already have a lot of these tools that you've built on your own. So that's my opinion. My opinion is if Unity's not going to give this away, this kind of just shows the direction that Unity's trying to go in right now. As far as XR as a standard, that's something since quote unquote the beginning, right? In the beginning wasn't that all that long ago. It was like 2012 or whatever. That people have been talking about for a long time. We're going to have some kind of VR, XR, AR, MR, whatever standard, and everybody's going to adhere to this library, and that just hasn't happened. So I don't know that I would lean on that ever happening. I think I would just expect to always have to port your shit. That's just how it's been. Like even today, versus OpenGL versus DirectX versus PlayStation's, GNM versus, Nintendo's render. Like, none of these things are standardized. There's ways to get them, sort of crosstalk and whatnot, but it's a lot of work to do that porting, and somebody has to do it. These days, a lot of the game engines have already done it for you, right? Like if you're using Unity or using Unreal, those renderers are already sort of just working. If you're using your own tech, you're going to have to do the implementation. And I think it's just always going to be that way. I don't know that I would invest too much in learning a specific piece of tech unless that's your focus, right? So, and this is a thing in games in general. And as more you get into AAA, the more narrow your focus gets. And that's totally fine. That needs to happen. You have to have people that can, figure out how exactly the driver works, on PlayStation or whatever, to get Frostbite to do the thing that it's going to do. But if you're an indie dev and you are on a larger team, you have to take a higher level view. You have to just say, I don't care about any of that. All I care is that it works and I can figure out how to get it to work because I have something else that I have to build. So yeah, it's there's a couple of facets there to your question, but I hope that I answered some stuff.
No, that's good, man. Thanks, Dan. Yeah, again, I got your email addresses, so please expect about 6 questions of varying different topics, if you don't mind. You don't have to reply to it, turns out. So.
All right, thank you, Joe. Sean Dahlberg, you're up.
Quick question. I'm assuming you guys use like an agile methodology, Scrum, Kanban, something like that. It sounds like you already worked with a lot of contractors, and it's probably more applicable today. How do you keep everyone focused when they're working from home?
Well, right now we're still in a very early stage of production, and so it doesn't have to be as focused yet, right? Because there's still some experimental stuff going on. And currently I'm the solo engineering dev. So as far as doing those task type dependencies, I'm the one doing that. So I'm doing the production the producery type of stuff and actually building the thing as far as the engineering side. On the art side, Richard can talk a little bit more about what he's doing with the contractors there.
Yeah, I think for me the big key thing is just having a weekly meetup, having a face-to-face. We've been doing a little bit of a group meetup every week, every Thursday. These guys are actually living overseas, so we actually find a time that kind of crosses over that. And really it's just like finding, giving the feedback, going back and forth with them, seeing how they're doing, and then giving them another chunk of work that they can be pretty self-sufficient with. There isn't really much back and forth. Finding people that are already know the craft helps out a lot because there's not a lot of troubleshooting. So if it's like, I don't know how to do this, well, it's like this person definitely knows how to do that. So I don't really have to follow up with them. But I think, yeah, the key thing was just weekly meetings, and I think 20 to 30 minutes is really nice. Keeps a good repertoire between that person and you, and it's working out so far. So
yeah. So it's pretty loose right now, but it'll tighten up as we get further on. Yeah. Just real quick, Stephanie had a question. She asked.
She asked me. She followed up in private message, but yeah, you apparently at one point were talking about risk and the risk that Panic Button had. Did you mean that the fact that you were an employee at the same time, or that it may have been just too small a scope game or a potential for them?
Well, it was a little bit more than that actually for them. And again, I'm super appreciative of them helping us out with this too, because they actually gave us resources to make this work, right? So it was myself as an engineer, which means that they took me off of the other projects that I was working on. which was a cost to them. But at the same time, they were still paying my salary. They gave us QA, they gave us production, they gave us, they helped us out with ratings, and they helped us out with localization. So they actually had some skin in the game on this. So that's where the risk came from.
All right. Aaron.
Yes. Hi. My internet went out in the middle of your presentation, so I apologize if you already talked about this, but I wanted to ask, how do you guys feel about crowdfunding as a means to jumpstart development for a game or a studio?
I don't think crowdfunding is a good way to jumpstart, at least not today. It seems like most of the successful crowdfunded stuff today happen towards the end of a project. Now that being said, the person to ask about this is actually not us. It's Gordon, because Gordon and Artcraft, they crowdfunded Crowfall, and that was an incredibly successful campaign. And I'm sure that there was lots of nuanced stuff that happened there. But yeah, from what I see today, especially for smaller games, it seems like people are less interested in crowdfunding something that looks like vapor, right? Like if there's nothing there, it seems like more and more today, people want to see some kind of almost like a vertical slice before they put money into a Kickstarter. What do you think, Richard?
Yeah, I think, for us, it didn't make a lot of sense because the VR industry is small. We haven't seen any kind of VR games use Kickstarter in a great way. I think there's an anime game that was like, hey, there's some success there. There's this like weird MMO that tricked people, and that game will never come out.
That was Vapor.
That was Vapor. But that was kind of successful. And I worked at Portalarian with Shrouded Avatar, which was a Kickstarter game and lots of crowdfunding continually throughout the development. I think, you get this money, but there is a lot of baggage with it. And I think that's something that...
and it takes away, like, from the people that I've talked to that have done it, it takes a huge amount away from your production. Like, everything stops and grinds to a halt so that you can do your campaign, So,
and I think for, you could get these diehard fans and build out this relationship, but it is a heck of a lot more work. What was I going to say? For me as a consumer, I don't like Kickstarter for video games. It just takes too long. I never get the product that I don't really care about the product after all this is said and done. I think Bloodstained was the only one that I felt like really good about out of like the 20 that I did. So for me, like I always like to make a product that I can see myself buying or going through that avenue and being very happy about it. Don't like the way they deliver games. I have to check out emails. It's not delivered very easily. I think for overall, I'm just not very happy with Kickstarter for video games. I think it's a great resource for board games, or if you're going to produce your book, products that just need that production money. I think for me personally, it's too much baggage. Our audience wasn't big enough for that to support, and it's just
and Gordon put in a bunch of information there in the chat. So if you guys are you should check that stuff out. They've got some pretty interesting stuff, but I'm sure it was not easy.
and they're also producing a live game, right? So they're going to be used to interacting with this audience, and managing that audience is going to be a full-time job for somebody. So if you're not willing to take those reins, then, and we weren't for sure.
For sure. No.
So that's definitely why we didn't go down that avenue.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Yeah, my friend Aaron Standridge, some of you guys know, he has a term for what happens when you've forgotten that you've contributed to a Kickstarter and then it actually ships. It's called a kickstartled. Stephanie had one other question she sent to me. Dan, how long or how much time did you spend getting multiplayer to work?
That was actually a pretty long process because I did it a couple of different times. I think the very first time I got multiplayer to work was for a jam, and that was probably the worst jam ever. I was banging my head up against the wall that whole weekend. But at the end of the weekend, we did have a prototype where you could play together, and it was just, you were just jumping around and shooting each other. It was like the simplest thing that I could think of in a multiplayer thing. And then from there, I spent probably, I think it took about 3 or 4 months to get the multiplayer out on Steam after that. So Yeah, so almost as long as the original production.
All right. Well, anyone else have any other questions for Dan and Richard? Like I said, Gordon just dumped a whole bunch of links all about, again, he and his partner, Todd Coleman, did not go into their venture without doing a lot of research and investing their own money up front. So, and it's been only about, 8 years since we've had Kickstarter. I think it started in 2012. So there's a lot more information about exactly what has happened. Plus the knowledge that only about 33% of all the game projects actually ship at all, no matter, whether or not they meet their goals or not. Patrick Curry has a question. Patrick.
Hey guys, thanks for the great talk. It was awesome. Thank you for being very open about everything. It's super helpful for, even me. I run a studio. I don't know if you talked about your engine decisions, but I'd be interested to hear about how and why you decided on the current game engine for the new project. And
yeah, so we switched over to Unreal Engine for the new project. Part of it, actually, I think a big part of it was me. After working at Panic Button for several years, I started having a lot more experience with Unreal Engine in various forms. And I just really liked having everything there. I didn't, there was no more of this, I have to go to the asset store to get something to fill in the gap on some tool that I don't have. And I have all the source code. So if there's some weird crash bug that I'm running into, I can actually just hit it in the debugger and go, oh, there's a null ref here that I can fix that, recompile the engine, and boom, we're done. And I have worked on Unity projects before where we had source, and those were not easy projects to do, where compared to the Unreal projects that I've worked on, it's just, it was just easier. Also, there's a whole bunch, there's like probably a whole rabbit hole I could go down here, but there's some things about Unity today, as far as the company, that I'm not a fan of, like how they're, in my opinion, how they're treating some of their developers and stuff like that. And
well, how Patrick worked with them too.
Well, yeah, and Patrick like worked very, very closely with Unity for a long time, so I'm sure he's not.
Don't blame me.
What's that? Yeah,
I said, don't blame me.
You're the reason. Yeah, you're the reason we left. No, but I don't think that like my interactions with Unity will go away, right? Like, because I still help other people around here when they have stuff, and quite often it's with Unity stuff. We run into Unity stuff all the time. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yes, please don't blame Patrick for that. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is normally the time when Capital Factory staff would be kicking us out of the building. So I once again want to thank everyone for spending your evening with us. Thanks, Richard and Dan, for preparing and delivering a great speech and all the particular knowledge. Hopefully everyone will get a chance to copy everything that Gordon et al. Have put into chat. Again, this is why I tell people that it's important to stay in touch, not just for the humanity of each other, which we oftentimes don't appreciate, but you never know when someone else has a little bit of specific information or has put stuff together in a way that didn't occur to you. That's the kind of stuff that doesn't matter how smart you are. It does matter who you know and who knows you. We will be planning on doing another one of these same time as we normally do in August. We'll announce the speaker and the plans when we get it available. We definitely are interested in people that have something to say and that can speak for 40 minutes and not fall down, although we let everyone sit down this time. Just have something to say and do it with some bit of authority that you're willing to share with us. And it will be good practice. None of us are very good at public speaking. Some of us are better than others, but no one got good at anything without practice. And this human interaction thing, it's a thing. So again, want to thanks everyone for paying attention to us. Thanks for Capital Factory for hosting this. I will post links up when this ends up on YouTube eventually. And good night. Be safe, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Good night. Thanks for coming.